How you doing today? It's David, Jersey Boy Music. We're coming to you from the Beatles corner, which means we are collecting the Beatles 101. So today we're going to talk about this album here on the wall. I don't know if you can see it, but I got it right here too. This is the Hey Jude album. It's a compilation album from released February 26, 1970. And let's take a little close up look at this album, and then we'll come back to the Beatles corner and we'll talk a little bit. Okay, so here's an up close, detailed look at the front cover of the Hey Jude album. Nowhere does it say Beatles or Hey Jude or anything on the front cover at this point. We all know who they are. Although there was on the shrink wrap a hype sticker that said the title Hey Jude with the catalog number. And the three photos on the cover, the two photos on the front and the one on the back, were from the final Beatles photography session with Ethan Russell as the photographer. There's the first photo on the front, and then above their heads in the window is the second photo from the same session. And it's interesting to me. I mean, Paul and Ringo look like Paul and Ringo in this photo. John looks like some sort of Spanish matador or holy man or something. I don't know. Does not look like John Lennon to me. Nor does George look like George to me in this photo, which is very interesting. Anyway, let's look at the back cover. All right, here's the back cover. And again, same photo session outside of John's house. I think it was called Tittenhurst or something like that. Reportedly, this picture was supposed to be the front cover, and then the picture that was used on the front cover was supposed to be here on the back cover, but there's conflicting information about that. So it's just a rumor. Anyway, we've got no word, no name of the Beatles. Here's the song listing, and produced by George Martin. And then down here, I don't know if you can see it, says printed in USA. Now let's also take a look at the catalog number, because I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a minute. SW385. There you go, it's now in focus. So let's take a look at the actual record. Here you go, the Beatles again. Oh wait, why does it say the Beatles again on the record? Well, that was the original title for this compilation album. The Beatles again. It was changed at the last minute to Hey Jude. But initial pressings of this album carried the Beatles again name. And it's actually seems to be a lot more common than you would think to see this on the record label. Every Apple label version I've seen says the Beatles again. So I don't know if it's just that I keep running into them, or they're just that common, or maybe they didn't even switch the name on the record label itself until later on, after Apple or whatever. But let's take a look at side 2. Okay, before I get into this a little bit more, this is a Scranton, Pennsylvania pressing, and bell sound is stamped in the inner groove matrix, and it is a great sounding album. So on with the on with this. Side 2, the sliced apple side, Beatles again. Now remember I showed you the catalog number on the actual cover, but here on the record it is SO385, not SW385. The SO prefix carried a higher retail price of, I think at this point it might have been $6.95, but $1 higher than an SW prefix. So when they changed the title, they also figured, I guess, Capitol Records figured, why charge $1 more for old music? for a compilation album. So it got on the cover an SW prefix, but here on the first pressings, SO was the original catalog prefix number. So there you go. Let's go back to the Beatles corner. So there you are. The Hey Jude Beatles Again album, up close and personal. So, first off, as mentioned, I don't know if I mentioned this. I will mention it right now. So at this point in time, the Beatles were under the management of Alan Klein, New York shyster lawyer, or shouldn't say that. I don't know, but he was a shrewd businessman. He was from New York City. And he was also managing the Rolling Stones. Now, if you are a Rolling Stones collector here in the States back in the 60s, um, even worse than what you can have your opinion as far as Capitol marketing the Beatles and all that. But, at least Capitol never duplicated songs on Beatles albums and presented them as new and exciting albums. However, on London Records here in the States, under Alan Klein's management, um, if you're a Rolling Stones fan, you'd get albums like this one, Flowers, as an example. I'm featuring this because I have it. And all of these were, if I remember right, all the songs on this album were previously released, kind of like a greatest hits so-called compilation album, but kind of presented as a fresh, new, and exciting Rolling Stones album. Ruby Tuesday, Have You Seen Your Mother, Baby Standing in the Shadow, Let's Spend the Night Together, Lady Jane, Out of Time, Mother's Little Helper, and a few others. Um, so Capitol never did that with the Beatles music. However, now that Alan Klein has taken the reins, he had negotiated a contract with Capitol Records here in the States, not Parlophone, not like EMI in general, but Capitol Records, in the contract for one compilation album a year. So this is the first of those compilation albums, the Hey Jude album. So the songs, stem from Can't Buy Me Love and I Should Have Known Better from way back in 64 to songs that were a little bit more current, like from 68 to 69. Hey Jude and Revolution. Oh, and then from 66, Paperback Writer and Rain. Then you had Lady Madonna, Don't Let Me Down, The Ballad of John and Yoko, and Old Brown Shoe. So, which was really a great idea if they had stuck with the more current songs on this album. So, now, I got this album back in 1976 from my uncle. He's about 13 years older than me, 14 years older than me. And I was getting into the Beatles because of a kid in my 6th grade class named Billy Pashik. And I don't know whatever happened to Billy Pashik. He was a pretty, like my friend in 6th grade, but then once we got into junior high school, then he got all cool and everything, started playing guitar, and then throughout high school he was just one of the cool kids, didn't have time for me. And he was, played guitar, he was in a band, and and here I was, the nerdy kid. So anywho, but his big influence on me was introducing me to the Beatles. So I told this to my uncle Kevin, and he's like, well, Dave, I got a couple of Beatles albums. So he gave me Hey Jude and Meet the Beatles, his old copies of those albums. So, I first put on Meet the Beatles because I knew by looking at the album covers that came first. So opening strains of I Want to Hold Your Hand, I fell in love with the Beatles. So then played this album, and I thought it was really cool. I did not realize though that this was a compilation album, and to my 12-year-old ears or 11-year-old ears, um, couldn't really spot. I knew some of the songs sounded different. Can't Buy Me Love and I Should Have Known Better sounded different, but I didn't realize how old they were when they appeared on this album, 6 years old or so. And so when I first listened to the Hard Day's Night album, I wondered how did they get those songs that were on this later album onto a Hard Day's Night. I even had to ask. Now I have a cousin who's a few years older than me. I had to ask him, were these in a Hard Day's Night? I was just speechless, everybody. So anyway, this is a cool compilation album. It kind of got supplanted by the Red and the Blue albums, but for a nice single album to have this set of songs, I think is a really cool compilation to have. How would I have changed the song order if I was in charge, which I wasn't because I was just like not even in kindergarten when this came out. Probably would have gotten rid of Can't Buy Me Love and I Should Have Known Better. Probably would have put on The Inner Light and the single version of Get Back, which they probably didn't want to put on this album because there was going to be a version on Let It Be. But maybe would have dug in a little bit more to some of the other songs that had only appeared as singles, but still sounded a little bit more fresh and vibrant. But it is what it is, right? Right. So there you go. The Hey Jude album, released February of 1970. And I think that's it for that. So there you go. Do you have a copy of the Hey Jude album? I'm really curious when the label on the record actually started saying Hey Jude instead of the Beatles again. And if you have one of those that's on an Apple label, I would like to know about it. So there you go. Until next time, it's me, David, coming to you from the Beatles Corner. We are collecting Beatles 101. I'll catch you on the flip side. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day. Before I forget, here's a little postscript. P.S. I love you. This album, the Hey Jude album, was released in other countries. Before I start hearing in the comments that I left this part out, I was rambling unscripted, so it was released. I have a German version of the album, German press version. I know it was released in Japan, I believe the Netherlands, of course up in Canada and down in Mexico, and eventually in 1977 it was released on the Parlophone label in England because it was a really great selling album there because they were getting it as an import from the US. So there you go. Now it's the end of the video. Thanks again for watching.